I'm Leslie Rohde with AskTheLawyers.com, and welcome to another episode of Ask the Lawyers. Today we're talking about accidents caused by drunk drivers, accidents that can be life-changing. And here to answer some of those questions is attorney Jack Hickey with the Hickey Law Firm in Miami. Jack, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me. Good to see you.
What should a person do if hit by a drunk driver?
Well, hit by a drunk driver, just like hit by any driver, is a situation where you, if you're capable, you, the person who's in the car that was hit, if you're capable, gather evidence. Picture's worth 1,000 words. There's a reason why we have that expression, and that's because photographs are so key. Photographs of both cars, both vehicles in the crash, the car crash, photographs of the roadway, and because you're talking about a drunk driver, the driver of the other car is very much a piece of evidence now, right? So go back, and if you are capable or somebody with you is capable, go back and photograph or videotape that driver. If that driver remains in the car and is slumped over the wheel, for example, or if that driver gets out of the car and walks and he or she is staggering or slurring their words or, glassy-eyed, etc. You want to get that on a photograph or on a video. So gather the evidence is the key.
Does a prosecutor or a district attorney represent victims of drunk drivers?
Well, no. They're supposed to take the wishes and the desires and intentions of victims into account in sentencing, and certainly the judge is, but they do not. These are people, prosecutors represent the state or the government, right? They prosecute crimes. So in a criminal context, and keep in mind, Leslie, that there are two completely different systems in our justice system, and pretty much throughout the world it's like this. One is civil and one is criminal. Right. Civil is where you were injured and you are seeking compensation for these injuries, whether it's medical or pain and suffering or what have you. Criminal is the DUI, right? The criminal is a completely different system, and the parties are different. So finally, the parties in a criminal case is, if it's the state of Florida where I am, for example, it is the state of Florida versus whomever was allegedly drunk driving or whoever allegedly, robbed a store or beat up somebody or murdered somebody, whatever. That's criminal. And civil is two citizens or a person versus a corporation.
So can someone receive damages maybe in both those situations, in the civil case and a criminal case, or is it just either one?
So really, you as the injured person have to assume that it's up to you to seek compensation. Okay. It's up to you to go hire a civil attorney and to bring a suit and get your damages. There are instances in which the prosecutor and the law allows for restitution, but that almost never is paid. Criminal restitution, and criminal restitution is not something which is insurable, and so the insurance company is not going to cover the insurance company is not going to cover that. When you sue driver Smith, for example, who ran into you, who was drunk and ran into you, it's really the insurance company of driver Smith that you are looking to answer for that negligence, right? So you want to get that insurance company involved.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. So if a drunk driver is not prosecuted for some reason, or maybe just found not guilty of a DUI or something like that, can a victim still then go ahead and seek a civil case?
Yes, absolutely. The standard for holding somebody criminally liable versus civilly liable, completely different. In the civil context, they have to be beyond a reasonable doubt. They have to be guilty. The person has to be guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And that can be really difficult. That's like a very airtight case. And these days, with these CSI shows, people expect some real ironclad, evidence that they can see and feel, hear, taste, whatever. And that is not always possible. So just because someone is found not guilty, does not mean, not guilty of the criminal violation, does not mean you cannot go after them civilly. In fact, the fact that they are found not guilty will not generally not be admissible in your civil case.
Okay.
So really, you just don't have to worry about that, so to speak. So it's not a factor.
So would a person in that circumstance need to search for a civil attorney specifically?
Yes, that's a criminal attorney has nothing to do with getting damages in a civil lawsuit. So you've been injured, you need a civil attorney, an attorney who does personal injury.
Okay, let's say an unfortunate accident, someone actually is hit by a drunk driver and dies. Mm-hmm. No one else is there in the family. What does the family do in a situation like that?
So again, a family in a situation like that hires a personal injury attorney to get a personal representative appointed and to bring a lawsuit for the estate and on behalf of the survivors of the person that just died. They're called a decedent, right? So there are survivors, and that word survivors is a term usually defined in your state statutes. In our state, it would include the spouse if there is any. If there is none, then it goes to certain other people, brothers, sisters, parents, etc. So it depends upon the statutory definition of survivors. But yes, the survivors and on behalf of or represented by the personal representative would bring the lawsuit and hire the attorney.
What kind of damages are we talking about available in these cases?
So the damages available in a wrongful death case, because that's what you're talking about, really is defined by statute. And it's defined by the statute in each particular state. Each state's a little bit different, but generally speaking, the damages include economic and non-economic, right? So economic are like the medical expenses, and if the person after the crash as a result of these injuries is in the hospital for a long time, that can be really significant. We had one case where a woman was in an accident and lingered in the hospital in a rehab center for a year, and then passed away, unfortunately. So that was over $1 million bill. So that's medical expenses. We have loss of what's called loss of net accumulations. That's what a person would leave had they lived a full life, what they would leave to their heirs. And then there's the biggest element of this, the biggest part of this is the loss of companionship of the spouse or the brothers or the parents or the children if somebody left children. So this obviously takes into account the sorrow, if you will, the companionship, and this is where the most significant damages are going to be awarded generally.
Such a tough thing for a family to be involved with, for sure. Let's talk about these dram shop acts, the laws. We've heard of them, but tell everybody what they are, and then how one of those laws might affect a case.
So a dram shop law, that's an old word, dram shop. It's an old word which basically defines the concept where an owner of a bar or a restaurant or someone who gives or sells liquor to somebody can be responsible for whatever actions that person takes, the drunk person takes, if they go out, for example, and get into a car crash. So that's the concept. In a lot of states, like in Florida, the legislature has been very protective of the restaurants and bars. That, of course, is reflective of the lobbyists of the restaurants and bars and things like that. We all know how that works. So in Florida, for example, it's a very restrictive statute, 768.125. That's the number. Anyway, it says look, the person who sells or provides alcoholic beverages will not be responsible for the for the actions of the person intoxicated, will not be, unless the person selling or providing knew that the person receiving the alcohol was habitually addicted to alcohol or was a minor. So those are two very narrow circumstances. If they sell to a minor, okay, they can be on the hook. They sell to not a minor, an adult, they're on the hook only if they know the person who sells it knows that the person taking the alcohol is habitually addicted to alcohol.
Great. Jack, thank you for explaining that. I had heard of the law before, but didn't understand the word at all in terms of where it came from. So thank you very much for explaining all that and answering some of these questions, tough as some of them may be to handle for families. Jack Hickey of Hickey Law Firm in Miami, we appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all so much for watching, and we want to remind you to please go and subscribe to our YouTube channel here so you won't miss another episode of Ask the Lawyers. I'm Leslie Rohde for AskTheLawyers.com, where you can choose a lawyer that lawyers choose.